This is actually insane. For the first time, I will say that on YouTube, this is not hype. I haven't been this amazed since I first discovered bacon. In 3 prompts, we have a working prototype of Stardew Valley. Of course, it doesn't have the heart and the soul and all of that actually went into it. But considering how quickly this has been lifted into fruition, it's actually ridiculous. So we need to set the scene a little bit. We're going to be building our own version of Stardew Valley. We're going to call it Claude Valley because we have absolutely no imagination. What we're going to do here is give this thing some form of spec. I'm not a game developer, but I did a little bit of pre-research with some vague things around what we actually need. So we've built something with Opus for this thing already that we'll take a look at in a second. I've also given it MCP access to something called Pixel Lab, which I'm sure if you're a game developer, you might either shit on me for not knowing anything or agree that this might be the right approach. Point is, in order for our agent to get some form of working sprite, we either need to get a hand-drawn pack or asset pack, or we need to get something that can draw them for us. So after a little bit of research, I saw that Pixel Lab is a thing, and I did some testing with Opus and it was able to make me little characters like this. So we know that it is perfect from that perspective. I am paying for this thing $24, and I did that because I want to have way more credit than we will ever need for this, so that Fable has no limits to get the thing done. It's going to talk to this via MCP, and I've already given it the guide to understand exactly what it needs to know on how to use this product to get what it needs. Another option that we could have taken is to use this dude's Sprout Lands asset pack. It looks really awesome. The only reason I didn't do this is because I wanted to see what happens when machines work together in order to get things done. In terms of the model that we are using, of course, we are using Fable over here. I've set it to extra high. I don't think using max or even setting it to extra high with workflows is going to give us positive results over the sheer amount of tokens that this thing is going to eat. I will, of course, be tracking that because I'm sure everyone is interested in how much this would actually cost. I haven't enabled extra usage yet because I'm hoping that I can get away with this on my max 200 plan. If I can't, I will enable extra usage and then we'll be able to see how much money this thing takes from me. We can see we got a pretty clean context window over here. We've used hardly anything, only 4%. For other stuff that we need as a part of our environment. So nothing really cluttering our workspace yet. Cool, so we're ready to build. I'll get this thing kicked off and then we'll have a look at the spec file that I put in to see if it deviates from that. So the prompt is fairly simple. I've just told this thing that I wanted to build a Stardew Valley style 2D drop-down pixel art farming sim that runs in the browser. I tell it briefly about what I wanted to use, what the goals of it are. I tell it what assets exist, that it has MCP access to specific things, and then I also tell it that it can choose to either follow this or suggest improvements and then do whatever it needs to do to get the thing done. And with that in plan mode, I'm now going to hit enter, and while it's doing that, we're going to come and have a look at the original spec. As you can see here, we start our spec with a very clear vision of what done is to the model. So it's just 10 steps that I say, okay, cool, this means that the POC is successful. We started with that, and that covers things like being able to walk, fish, plant seeds, grow, day-night cycle, that sort of thing. If it pulls all of that off, I will be truly amazed. Then next up, we have the tech contract. So this is just telling it what I want this thing built on and how I want it to run. This is a little bit different to what Eric Barone did. It was started in C#, I think, and then he moved it across to whatever it's on now. The point is here, we're going to be doing this browser-based. Opus recommended this 3 times, despite me protesting against it. So we're going to go with what Opus says, but remember, I gave Fable the ability to pivot and make changes if needed, despite whatever is written in the spec. We told it a little bit about how we want to control our characters, so that's pretty standard WASD. Brief mentions about the worlds and the scenes, what we expect to see in there because it's a farming sim and things like that. The systems that we want to see inside there, so we've got a time system, a farm grid, crops, inventory and hotbar, a shop, dialogue. I think it's been over generous with what it thinks it's going to pull off, but you never know. Then next up we have the art integration, so we tell it about Pixel Lab, that it has MCP access to this, and then we also tell it that it needs to make sure it understands this product before it goes out there and tries to use it, so that we get the best possible use cases for every single token that we spend. Like I said, obviously we are using Pixel Lab's AI to generate the actual pixels once Fable sends the command across to it. And then we just end everything with the build order and finally self-verification protocol. Of course, if I was actually building this for real, I would take a much more researched approach up front, make sure the spec is far more accurate, and I would make sure that as much as possible is in place without having to offset all of this work to Fable. But we're here to test that. That's the whole point of this video. While this thing is cooking on the left and learning all about Pixel Lab, we can see my account usage over here. We're on 7%. Maybe 2 or 3 prompts were from a previous Opus session, but literally that was probably at about 1 or 2%. So far, just by this thing planning, we've used 5%, allegedly. We'll see what we get away with during this session, but I see that I do reset in 1 hour, so hopefully that will help us. I imagine we'll be here for a little bit. And there we go, we're done. Interestingly, this thing thought that I approved the plan when I didn't and automatically just started building, so that's an interesting kind of thing. But then when I told it that, it realized it was in plan mode, and now it's showing me the plan. So you can see it's put together pretty much what we've done on the spec. So I'm just going to hit accept and I'm going to let this thing do whatever it wants to do. So about 10 minutes later, we are now in step 3 of our plan, kicking off Pixel Lab long jobs. So the reason why I paid for Pixel Lab is because I can do this in parallel. So we don't have to wait for each image to return before we can generate a new one. I can batch build them. So again, that's why I'm paying for that. Interestingly, at the bottom, the final point for its testing, it's going to be using Playwright. So check that I have got the Playwright CLI set up in here with spec-driven approach for front-end testing or any other kinds of testing as well that we can get away with Playwright. So it's going to be doing that. And if you want to learn how to do that, I do have a video. It's on the screen right now. Point is, I think we're going to be here for about 45 minutes at least. And we can see here it's designing all of our assets. So we got our crops. We got a few other things. We've got ID is ho. So this could either be a tool or it could be one of the characters in our game. It's also designing our NPCs, the state, the time system, so all of the things that we need to actually have our world functioning and our character able to use tools. But while this thing builds, perhaps I should try and instill some form of wisdom behind using this up until June 22nd before it falls out of our subscription for free. I think definitely what you want to be doing is pointing it at your most difficult tasks so that you can set yourself up for a much better and easier future with the other models like Opus. I mean, Opus is still ridiculously good, so it seems funny to say that, but by having Fable take care of really heavy lifting and perhaps building an amazing website template that Opus or even Sonnet can just piggyback off of for further builds, that would be a good approach if you're a web designer. If you're a YouTube content creator, you could get this thing to iron out your entire content journey, refine every single skill that you have, get it to perfection, so that every time you run other models, you can use much cheaper models in order to run them. The point is right now, and for a few months, I reckon this thing is going to be nowhere near as valuable for a business in terms of its cost to payoff ratio, unless whatever it is that you're building is going to be something that brings you a drastically large amount of money. And unlike other hype channels out there, I definitely don't think you should be running an AI operating system using Fable. You probably won't get away with much. And like I said, if you're designing these systems and building your business off of it, you might as well be using Sonnet and Opus for those sorts of tasks because those models are already far more capable to do your lead gen and all of those things. If you did join for the entertainment but want some more value in terms of how to set all of these things up for your personal life or your business, I'll set up a playlist down below so that you can learn whatever you need to know about Claude or Codex very easily. And after about 35 minutes, this thing is still chugging along. My God, game development takes forever. We can see over here that it ran into some issues and then it went and troubleshooted it to go and fix it. It thought for a few more seconds down here, deleted the 3 failed chain tile sets, and then it started re-rendering them. So it is learning as it goes along, and it's also analyzing whatever gets drawn or set in place and then fixes it to make sure that we're matching our definition of done, which is obviously what we want. And now we're on to the fishing game and designing the shop systems and the UI scene to render everything. So this brings me on to a question maybe someone in the comments could answer. Why would this thing recommend building this as a browser-based game? Of course, it's probably more simple and things like that, but if you're a game developer, you want to explain why this thing recommended it instead of choosing something else. I could, of course, ask Claude, but I'm just trying to keep things a little bit human. Okay, still some finishing touches here at 1 hour and 30 minutes. It's speaking to the agent inside Pixel Lab to figure out what it actually has in terms of animations that it's trying to grab to put on some of the finishing touches. So agents are speaking to agents. We can see here that it's called agent help. Question, print the list of 49 humanoid animations from your knowledge base. And then it did, and it got exactly what it needed. It'll be pretty interesting to see what would happen if my outbound agent spoke to someone else's inbound agent. We could do a simulation of what happens when agents run the world and completely run a business into the ground. And that would also be interesting to see if the one could out-negotiate the other and what would be the things that helped it to out-negotiate the other. Would it be a more superior model? Would it be a better back-end skill or prompt or something that gave it more information about how to take advantage of the other model, kind of like a battle between the two. That's part of what Mythos was doing, right? It was actually killing other processes in order to preserve itself when they were testing this. They were doing this whole kind of turf war thing. So really interesting to see how that's going to pan out as the models get smarter and released to the public over time. So after 2 hours, this thing is just kind of sitting here now. It's been here for about 15 or 20 minutes. Wondering if it's frozen. Interestingly, we haven't hit our context limit at all. Not once has this thing compacted, which is pretty crazy. Again, I imagine that's because of sub-agents. For those of you who don't know, sub-agent is literally just an agent in its own little isolated context box. So whatever task happens inside there, it doesn't bloat this main window that we're looking at right now, which is one of the biggest problems and why you hit your context limits so fast. When we isolate it, all we get back is the answer that we need, which then pushes it back into here so it can continue working. There are many ways you can manipulate it, but I've covered that in separate videos as well. Point is, we have almost developed an entire game without having to compact once. So I just prompted Claude to be much better at monitoring this so that it decreased the amount of time this thing took to finish. After I did that, I literally said to it that I'm going to gym. It has full reign to do whatever it needs to do to make sure that this thing is done by the time I get back. So an hour later, this thing is finished. And we're about to check out the version that this thing built for us for V1 off of one prompt. And so here we are in Claude Valley, the least imaginative name that anyone could possibly have come up with. Let's see how this game runs. We've got a little farmer over here. We've got a house that we can't go into yet. This is obvious. We never asked it to make the inside of the house and various other aspects, but we got our tools. Even has sound effects. So that's cool. Let's try and hit a rock. Doesn't work because we have the axe. So that's cool. It took care of that as well. We need a pickaxe in order to break that. 1 copper ore received. Let's switch to the axe, try and cut down a tree. There we go. We cut down the tree and got some wood. Let's catch a fish. I mean, this is bananas. Off of one prompt and a little bit of a spec at the beginning. Imagine what you could do with this if you actually had domain expertise in game development and gave it everything that it needed up front in order to do this. So how the hell do I catch this fish? There we go. That's Mansel. And I caught the sun perch. Amazing. Look at that. No, we don't need another fish. So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get this thing to burn through the rest of my tokens once we've obviously assessed how many it took to get us to V1. And I'm going to see what kind of polish this thing can put on it and then just let it run. Okay, so I used CC usage, grabbed our session ID and whatever else this thing needed in order to extract the correct amounts here. And so our total cost comes in at $162.94, which is bonkers because if you think about the time and the effort involved in me actually doing this was almost nothing. I could have just left this thing from the get-go and it still would have finished. Our only real constraint was Pixel Lab's ability to generate fast enough. And again, that's because I didn't pay for the most expensive plan where I would have had better limits. I also didn't give this thing the best probable plan out there that somebody who's really experienced could have given it. So we could bring these numbers down a lot. Something to keep in mind though, we had a 99% token cache rate, which is pretty crazy. That basically just means that when this thing was going out there to read context, it was getting it from cache instead of sending everything over every single time it had to do an iteration. That's generally where most of the expense comes out in AI when you have those really long running conversations. And like I mentioned earlier, that can be offset by using those isolated sub-agent branches. But cache is another way to do it. So as long as whatever the workflow that you have hits the cache, you're going to get a lot of savings. And that's exactly what we got over here. It says a long autonomous session rereads its own context on every tool call. So the headline of 132 million tokens, it sounds wild, but only 1.2 were full price input output. That's why it's 163 and not $2,000. So for those of you building out there, cache is really important. In terms of assets from Pixel Lab, we only used 156 of my 5,000. So again, we have lots of room to play with this, and I'm gonna let this thing do whatever it wants now. And here we go, the next plan is off to the races. So I got this thing to go out there and do a ton of research about how to make this thing actually look better. I also gave it a little picture of actual Stardew Valley so that it could pull out some certain things around the depth, the color grading and things like that to see if we can get it more attractive than it currently is. It's also gonna pull in some game audio. I had the option to choose between AI generated, which we could easily do, or just grab some of the free resources out there. So I went with the free resources. Obviously, we could have just gone with the AI generated slop, but that doesn't really matter, not the point of this video. One final thing that I did was make sure that this thing's not going to get stuck in any form of loops. So it's actually going to build itself its own little daemon task board, and it's going to go back and forth between those tasks. And as soon as something starts taking too long, it will automatically troubleshoot it for us. And it's going to do that with stall detection, heartbeat telemetry, and supervisor watcher from minute 0. So hopefully this should finish a lot quicker. But considering how quickly this has been lifted into fruition, it's actually ridiculous. We can use our pickaxe to break rocks. We can then take our little axe and we can chop down our tree. Once we've chopped down our tree, we get our wood. We can then go down to our lake over here and maybe do a little bit of fishing. If you catch a fish, the music changes and you can catch the fish. But the crazy thing is, I never even asked it to do that. So it's added all of these sound effects and the music where it thought it would be worthwhile. But then even more interesting is that it created these shadows. So since the first version that we did with version 2, we now have all of these shadows in here. We have more life around the entire map. We have animals. We also have a house that we can now enter. And while there are still some little changes that would need to take place, like the house looks like it's floating because of the shadows that are in there, we can still enter it. It thought to put a cat inside here and make it purr, which I absolutely didn't ask it to do. The house could do with a lick of paint, but again, the amount of craziness that goes into this, we have our day-night cycle working. Today is raining. Let's see if it's actually raining outside. And it is raining. It would be cool if it put some lights here, but again, we can still prompt this. I haven't used even close to my daily limits yet, which also completely surprised me. We can then move over to the right and it takes us to the town center where we've got a bunch of people wandering around. Let's see if we can speak to them. You smell that? River's running clear today. Cast off the bridge. The deep water holds the good fish. Which is crazy. I told this thing my main goal is that I want to be able to fish off of that bridge. So it took that as narrative and made this dude talk about it. Let's see what this one has to say. Morning, sugar. Shop's always open for you. I bet it is. Parsnips are quick money this time of year. Don't go selling yourself short. Water those crops every day. And then we have the same floating problem over here, but we see we have a working shop. So we can buy stuff from this woman who's trying to clearly sell us something other than fruit and vegetables. But then we can also go into this cave over here. We can do some mining. Maybe there'll even be creatures in here, who knows. I can go further down into the mine because it's an endless level generator. I'm probably going to get stuck in here unless this thing kind of figured out how to make a way back, but I don't think so. Ah, it did. Yeah, so you can just enter from the top. Anyway, this is insane, and I think AI has now just entered a new level of addiction because we've leveled up from whatever the hell the addiction level was before to a point where now I think we're getting to a stage, as long as you have enough money to cater for this, you can pretty much do anything that you want. But one thing we need to do before we drop off is look at the final tally. So this was 3 prompts. By the time we got to prompt 2, you pretty much saw it was on the screen now. Because I'm a perfectionist to try to get even more out of it with a third prompt. The third prompt was just some final bug testing, and then I added the farmhouse interior, which you see over here. So in total, this would have cost us $316. We actually used a ton of tokens, but like I said, because most of them were cached, we saved a ton of money. There is no way this is cost effective for Anthropic, so that's obviously why they've limited the use for us up until the 22nd, until they've harvested all the users' data and how they've actually been using the product in order to make their product better. That's definitely the play here. Just like with most drugs, the first time is always free. So with every part of AI, you see them giving out these free things. Once people get onto it, they're never going to give this kind of technology up because it gives them power that they never had. I think the world is about to become a very funny place, and I think it's definitely going to increase the value that you have if you have a skill in some form of art, because human products are going to be coveted in the future. I can tell you that for sure. For me, I've been making music for 25 years. There is no way you could convince me to use AI in any way to help me make music. I think it removes part of what my purpose has always been. But more importantly, learning these actual skills, these artistic expressions, and the way that you would translate things trapped in your head or feelings you can't explain into drawing, painting, writing stories, or making music is what makes us uniquely us. So from the perspective of me always wanting to have made a computer game, I now have that ability if I have enough money and time, and then I could just augment it with the part of me that knows how to write stories and write my own music for the game. So I'm not just putting slop out into the world, I'm essentially just replacing a human developer with an AI developer and then attaching the most valuable parts of what makes me a human into the world so that hopefully other people resonate with whatever I put out there. So I think that's kind of the vibe that we should all be looking at if you're trying to use this from a creative perspective. Use it for the parts that you genuinely can't do, but then double up on the parts that you can do to show that you're putting in all of the human effort behind it. That's just a side philosophical rant. For your business, this thing is going to absolutely take care of any problem that you have. The downside is that it's ridiculously expensive at the moment, and it's only available for a limited time at this current price. I'm sure that will change in the future, and OpenAI is probably going to release something very soon. But for now, don't stress too much about it because, like I said, the models that we already have will tackle any business task you have. So I hope this video was fun and entertaining. It's definitely different from the things I normally do. If you have any comments, leave them down below. I'd love to talk to you. Otherwise, check out the videos on the screen now. They'll definitely help you in your journey, or you can have a look at my community where I help people with AI every single day. See you guys later.